Maintain Monday.
Welcome to Maintain Monday. I'm your host, Placida.
And I'm your host, Cassandra. We are really excited about this Maintain Monday. Not that we're not excited about the rest of them, not at all. But this one is really dear to me and Placida's heart about being in leadership and being married. That
leading together as one.
So again, I am Cassandra Ferguson, and I want you guys to do me a favor and go follow Elevation Global Media Group on Facebook, of course, on Instagram, on Twitter, and also on LinkedIn. Things that are coming ahead, and we want you guys to be in the mix of it, and we want you to be able to see what we're doing. And we also want to invite you in. We're always sort of looking for guests. And not only that, because we have the Elevate Your Life Talk Radio, we are looking for those that want their voice to be heard. They have a message, you have a movement, you have something that you want to share with the world. We want you to go onto our website, and we want you to fill out that interest form for Elevate Your Life Talk Radio.
What is our website again?
www, as long as I don't know what, no, that's not it. ElevationGlobalMediaGroup.com.
ElevationGlobalMediaGroup.com. Yes, we absolutely are excited about what God is doing through Elevation Global Media Group. Maintain Money. We'd like you to do that too. But Maintain Monday is just one of the initiatives that God has, given Cassandra, our visionary, to bring forth. But your vision is equally as important. So if you have been looking for an opportunity or a way to get the word out about your vision, I think you've just found it. Elevation Global Media Group.
So tell us about Women Elevated, Placida.
I was just about to tell them, girl. I was just about to, because Elevation Global Media Group is a way that is one of the mediums that God uses to help me to get my message out, that the vision that God has given me for Women Elevated. Women Elevated is an organization that helps women across the globe. We, which is our acronym for Women Elevated, will cause women to emerge into their God-given purpose. We will propel women into life-giving relationships with God and others. We will equip this generation to glorify God in their being and in their doing. And if you want to know why, things like, things like Bible studies that we do together, training programs and initiatives, we have a upcoming radio program that we will be offering. So you can find all of that out, everything that we're doing with Women Elevated, on our website at womenelevatedglobal.com. So go check us out. Check
them out. So we have a topic we're talking about. We're still in our series on leadership. And what an appropriate time to be talking about leadership.
Absolutely.
We have to withhold our standards as a leader. And so we're talking about leadership, leading together as one. So leading together as a couple, whether you are in the church or a marketplace, we're going to be talking about that. So again, let's look at 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy 3:5-7 says this: For is a man cannot manage his own household, how can he take care of God's church? A church leader must not be a new believer, because he might become proud, and the devil would cause him to fall. Also, people outside of the church must speak well of him, so that he will not be disgraced and fall into the devil's trap. So what I'm seeing in this scripture is accountability.
I think that the video that we chose to show this week is a great picture of this scripture. Yeah. Why don't we take a look at the video?
Marrying Dave Wilson was the most exciting thing I could even imagine. I just had these pictures in my head of what Dave was going to be like. He's the hottest, most godly. He's going to lead me spiritually. It was the most anticipated thing of my life to marry him.
I was married 10 years, and then we started embarking on the dream of our life. which was starting this church.
We just had this vision of wanting God to do something great in terms of reaching people.
Couldn't believe that God would use us to reach thousands for Christ, and it was an absolute dream come true.
The dream started to become a reality, but it was becoming a very difficult reality.
I basically got 2 or 3 jobs going all at the same time, trying to be a dad, trying to be a husband, trying to live my dream of starting this church.
He was gone more and more and more.
I'm at the same time the Detroit Lions chaplain, so I'm leading Bible studies, I'm on the road with the team.
And I would say things like, honey, you've got to be here. Like, the boys are growing up, I need you. The boys need you. I'm longing to spend time with you. And he's like, oh, I know.
I thought I was doing great as a husband, as a dad. I preach this stuff. I know, what the Bible says about marriage, and I'm not perfect, but I'm living it pretty good, and we've got a pretty good marriage. I would put my marriage up against anybody's.
He would walk out the door, and I'd be like, wait, you're leaving again tonight? And he'd be like, yeah, don't you remember I had this meeting, and then I have to go here, and I have to speak to these people? And I'd be like, whatever. Great, you know what? I'll put the boys to bed by myself again. That's great, honey. See ya.
I would have said to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, my marriage is probably a 10. If not a 10, it's a 9.8. And I guarantee you my wife would agree.
And I would have probably said, we're a 1, maybe like a 0.5. And I think he was totally clueless to that, which then that made me even more angry because I'm thinking, how do you not know how bad we're doing?
On May 24th, 1990, it was our 10-year anniversary, and I sort of surprised Ann with a 10-year anniversary date. We dressed up, went to a really nice restaurant, and I sort of set it up with the waiter while we were having dinner. When I would cue him, just sort of give him a look, he was supposed to bring a rose over. And so I cued him early in the dinner, and he brought over a rose and laid it on the table, and we talked about year 1.
He was like a little boy that night, like waiting for the next thing to happen.
And I looked over later and he brought another rose. So anyway, every rose was a year, and we would talk about that year.
He was so sweet. He even planned what he was going to say when each rose arrived.
On the way home, I thought it'd be pretty cool to park in the parking lot where we were about to start our church. And Ann hadn't even seen this, so I thought it'd be pretty cool to park there, maybe pray about what God could possibly do. And to be totally honest with you, I thought we should just park.
I know Dave Wilson. I knew that there was like this ulterior motive where it was like, yeah, we're gonna park here, and he's all about the parking part. And so I kind of knew that was coming.
So I leaned over to kiss Ann, and as I, lean over to kiss her in the passenger seat, she sort of pulls away.
I just was like, I can't even, honey. I in my head, I was thinking, I cannot even go there.
So I pull back and I look at her and I say, is something wrong? She looks at me, I'll never forget this, and she goes, well, yeah, there is something wrong. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she says, well, to be honest with you, I've lost my feelings for you.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, wow, wow.
Let's just say that that's a real place.
Oh, it's a very real place.
Especially when you feel like you are married, right? And now you feel like a single parent, or you feel like the spouse is now carrying more. We say it like this: everybody's Superman, being there for the church, being there for everybody else, but won't be there for your own family.
Mm-hmm. And if they only knew how we look at home,
right?
Maybe they wouldn't see you the way they see you. They might say, "Go home." Like you need to go home more than you need to be here, right?
Right.
But you have somebody with you. Who's that?
Yes, I have a guest who's also my husband. 3 years.
Awesome.
Antonio Ferguson, who is a marketplace leader with a major. We're not going to give them, telecommunication company. Let's just say that for over 30 years.
That's awesome.
So, a deacon in our church, Mount Pleasant Church and Ministries. He has been through some major discipleship program called Operation Timothy. We have done the Art of Marriage and actually family life Marriage Builder, which we were facilitators and leaders in that as well. And we are leaders in the marriage ministry of Mount Pleasant as well. So I'm excited that the birthday boy, because today is also his birthday.
You know we weren't going to let you get away without saying that. Happy birthday.
Yes.
How's everybody doing?
Welcome to the show, Antonio Ferguson, also AKA my big brother, whether you know it or not. That's my big brother and sister in Christ. They have paved the way for many of us to come behind them and build marriages that are strong, built on the rock, which is Christ. So welcome. I feel like I'm interviewing the two of you over there as marriage experts. But let me bring two more marriage experts to the show. Phillip and Darlena Fields are the authors of The Unperfect Marriage, and they lead Warriors Awakened for Revolution, leadership training. They are the founders of Get Real Ministries and Be Courageous Coaching with 25 years of experience of counseling and coaching. Phillip has his bachelor's in theology from ORU and his master's in marriage and family counseling. Something's happening here.
Yeah, your sound. We can hear you now.
That came out of nowhere. Okay, that's all right. We prayed for the telecommunications. I'm not sure what's happening here, but we're going to get through it. So Darlena graduated with a degree from business from ORU and attended Regent University. Phillip has served in senior pastoral ministry for many years, and Darlena is a certified life and health coach. I don't know what's going on, y'all, but we're going to just get through it. They have 4 children and they live in the suburbs of Atlanta. We're going to welcome to the show Phillip and Darlena. Welcome.
Welcome, Darlena.
Hey.
The Unperfect Marriage. Woo! Woo. And you know, I love that title. And we're going to get into more about your book, but we want to hear your feedback on that video that was just played about the art of marriage, about how sometimes, you know, let's just say this, it don't have to necessarily be a wife. Your spouse may be crying out to you. Mm-hmm. And you just simply think because you're doing it, let's just say for the church, you're doing it for a good reason. You know, you're just being that all in all for everybody, that you don't see anything wrong with it. What do you guys think about that?
Well, we actually didn't get to see the video, but this is what I would say about the topic. There's never a good reason to neglect your marriage. You know, it's God, then marriage. If your marriage is suffering, then it's not a good idea, no matter how good the work is. I was traveling about 15 years ago, and I realized that my family needed me, traveling all over the country, doing ministry all the time. And I decided to set up a home office and do all my ministry from home for almost 10 years to ride my kids through their teenage years and join my wife and support her and put everything else that I was doing on hold. Mm-hmm. So I don't ever think there's a good excuse to neglect the most important priority, and that's marriage and family life.
That is so good. It was interesting in the video how the pastor, he thought everything was going fine. Mm. He said, like, if I had to rate my marriage, I would give it a 9.8 or a 10. Actually, he would give it a 10, but just, you know, just so there was a little bit of leeway, he gave it a 9.8. And she was all the way on the other spectrum. She said, I would give it a 0.5 or a 1. And so what I wanted to bring to the surface is, how can we sometimes be experiencing the same things and have very different, like we don't see it the same way? And how can we make sure that we're doing the work so that Phillip can see it through Darlena's eyes and Darlena can see it through Phillip's eyes? Like, how does a married couple take that approach?
Well, I think that this is the key, is that connection doesn't involve one person's opinion. Okay. Connection is a two-way thing, right? And so if on a weekly basis, we're not doing things that help her feel connected, and at the same time help me feel connected to one another. In other words, we got to pour into this thing together in order to have that connection. And really, wives, you need to speak up. If you're drowning and the bathtub's getting empty and the trust is going out the window, and you're getting the second best, third best, fourth best, that's what my wife used to say to me. Hey, I get the leftovers. If you're living on leftovers, it's time for you to speak up, and we need to empower her to do so and bring this thing to a focus. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yes, definitely. I don't know if you want to
Go ahead.
That's more good. Time. I mean, one of the observations that we've made over the years, and this is not new news, but typically men get their self-confidence from work because they feel like they got it going on at work and not such a success at home. Right. And so you'll find that a man will pour himself into where he feels successful. And that success at home, it's a two-way street. You know, it's got to work both ways. And so, and then connection, you know, is the number one thing that we have to work on. And, you know, like he said, if you're not communicating, the wife has got to communicate. And one of the things that helped us is just to get real. You know, our ministry is called Get Real, but we can be real in front of the world and not real at home and faking it at home. Mm-hmm. And you got to get vulnerable at home as well. Mm-hmm. And let down the pretense and let down your guard and let it be a place where a safe place for you to be real with each other and to not have to be on and perfect like you are for the world when you have to leave when you leave your home. Even though it'd be nice if we could just all live, you know, just the same way in and out of our home. We do put up a level of protection when we walk out of our room, kind of our house. We armor up to guard ourselves from being hurt. But when you come home, it's when you need to let that armor down.
You know what? That is so good because I remember, Darlena, when our bishop had basically called my husband to be a deacon, right? And let's get real about this, and I'm gonna let him talk. I was like, I'm gonna be honest, because the reason I was like, is because I saw a couple of wives that had their husband, and we were in leadership. We were doing, you know, the home builders and teaching, and you know, and I was in the women's ministry, and he was doing stuff with the men's ministry. But this was a major thing to me, right? Which I think is all of it is major, whether you have a title or not. But I was like, I don't see the women too happy, you know, and I didn't want our happiness. I didn't want, let's just say, our time as a family to be stripped. But then I realized it was really up to the man or the woman to have accountability and hold their own self accountable. And they recognize like you said in the beginning, Phil, God, family, you know, God, marriage, and God, family, and then the church. But at that time, because I was still learning and still understanding, the only thing I could see is expressions and you know, looks on other couples' face. I was like, well, some people don't look that happy, you know, and I don't want that. So, baby, how did you feel when that, you know?
I was in shock because I didn't look at myself as that. You know, I love people, and some of the things, you know, sometimes you don't look at yourself as where other people see you at. So when he did call us to be deacons and deaconesses, you know, we went into that. It was a lot of apprehension originally because you knew it was going to take away from some things that you probably used to doing, because there's more time going to be spent at the church and doing some other things at the church that, you know, you had to learn. But that being said, when we got there, you know, the wife said the same thing about the disposition of some of the other leaders that were there. And we came in with a whole bunch of other
Let's say radical.
Younger group came in at the same time. So, of course, you know, they looked at us like these rebels, you know, coming in trying to take over. I mean, some of the ones that were there, you know, they were a little harsh with the way we were coming in. But that being said, when we got there, you know, we just basically became ourselves. We stayed ourselves. And a lot of the people that were there who gave us that look when we first came basically started following how we lived our lives and wanted to do some of the things that we do with our families, and realized that we weren't going to cut our families off just because you got this title. Like I said, I don't even need it. I'm going to be who I'm going to be because that's who God called me to be. So the title is just something that man gave us, and I just thank God for the opportunity to be a leader, because people actually had their lives changed by me and my wives and the other wives and husbands that were brought in at that time. So it's been a blessing, and we just continue to do what we got to do, whether it's at church or in the workplace. Same thing. People just realize that when you take that, you're taking God with you everywhere you go.
Yes, sir.
And when you take it into the marketplace or wherever you're with it, you know, you just got to be that example and that leader, and just continue to be you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about being you and what God called you to be. Don't try or somebody make you into something that you're not.
Right.
That is very true. I the word that's sticking with me from what you just said, Tony, is the word radical. The way that you came in with others kind of from the same generation who had more of a radical approach to how we were going to do family, right? And I find that those that are in our generation, and then maybe the generation that is to come now, they want God. They don't so much want church, right? They want, I want to do this the way God has called us to do this. And so I'm going to be honest, Philip, when you said women need to speak up, I saw Cassandra's face, and I had the same thought in my heart. I don't know what my face said, but I was like, well, I come from a generation where that's not our problem. Like, we speak up. We don't always say it right. We might not always say it with tact, and I'm gonna speak for myself. Speaking up at home isn't the issue. It's speaking up with respect.
Right.
It's speaking up in a way that is pleasing to God. It is speaking up and getting your point heard and speaking in love, but in a way that your husband can receive it. And then there's one last thing I want to say that you mentioned, which was, and I thought it was so profound, Darlena, is that men usually get their value from the workplace because they know I'm succeeding here. I'm succeeding here. But then at home, I have this wife, and we know how, Proverbs talks about her, that she's up on the, we don't, on the roof, right? It's better to be on the roof than to listen to Placida. I'm gonna just say it like that. But I'm not giving my husband words of affirmation. I'm not saying that that's how I always am, but I have definitely been guilty of that. I'm not affirming him at home or making him feel like the successes. Rather, I'm pointing out his failures or his weaknesses or the things that I wish were different, or the fact that I just get the leftovers, when that's in fact true. But how do I say it in such a way that he can receive it and we can bring forth a marriage that's truly unified and reflects God?
Yeah, I think that, Placido, you're making a very good point, and I totally respect where Tony's coming from, in that, if a church is trying to, expect something of you you're not comfortable delivering, then you might need to set a boundary with that church leadership. And I think that can be healthy, because we need to keep this intact, our marriage, as we move forward in our service to our local churches. But I think that your comment about how we deliver our concerns is of major importance. And so there's this whole dynamic of love and respect. Paul says, wives, submit to your husbands. Well, the reason he said that is that because when a woman is under stress, being respectful is a challenge for her. And so she tends to act out of her emotion. And if she doesn't deliver it in a way that is respectful, then he's probably going to put up a wall and push back or pull away. Likewise, he says to the husband, he says, love your wife, because when he's under stress, he's not going to be loving. He's going to be cold. He's going to be indifferent. He's going to be condescending, maybe, and maybe he just pulls away. And so that's where the dynamic of healing that connection is so important, because if you can't talk about important issues like how we give our lives in service to our churches, then there's something in the connection that needs to be healed and addressed, and coming together and talking that through. And I love the fact that you say, okay, deliver the concern, but deliver it with respect. And likewise, men, we have to slow down. We tend to want to build the next mountain, climb the next mountain, go to the next thing. And, we kind of feel like we got our family intact, the money's flowing in, and everybody ought to be happy. But there are emotional needs. There are spiritual needs that we have to continue to, sow into in our relationships. I love that point. That's a really good one.
That's good. And you know what? I just want to ask you guys about your book, The Unperfect Marriage.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to write that book?
Well, we were on a journey. I had really hit a wall in life, and it was, of course, greatly affecting our marriage. But in my journey to come out of the dark hole that I had found myself in, I had this revelation about fantasy, that I had been holding my husband, my marriage, our ministry, our kids against this fantasy that I had. And I actually was struggling with rage, just to be honest and to be real. And I realized that the core of my rage came from the fact that I couldn't get my life to line up, my real life to line up with this fantasy that I started developing as a kid. And it wasn't till I realized that we had to let the veil of fantasy down, and so that I could really see Philip and I could really see my kids. And that's when like a revival hit our house. And so it's like we fell in love all over again. But
yeah, and to add to that, what I would say is that throughout the course of our 25 plus years of doing marriage and ministry is that the biggest struggle in the church has been authenticity and vulnerability. It's like we can't really talk about this because we're supposed to be this. We're struggling, but we can't bring that forward because we're supposed to be perfect. I'll never forget one Sunday morning when I was preaching at this church and I was pastoring, and I felt myself saying, our oldest is on a prodigal journey. Things have fallen apart at home. And I got up that morning and I just laid it out there. I said, I don't have a sermon. I have a need. What's happening? Things are falling apart at home and I can't fix it, And as a man, you just feel powerless. Like, man, I'm not winning the battle at home. I owned it. And in that moment, something unleashed in both of us. And we realized, because what happened in the congregation that one, there were all kinds of people there struggling with different issues, not exactly like ours, but everybody needed to talk. It's like, so once you get beyond the hiding, then we can actually heal. We can actually redeem. We can reconcile. We can move in. But if we're hiding, pride's in charge, and fear's ruling. So that's the big motivation is, we don't recommend, because we wrote this thing raw, you guys. And when you read it, you'll see what we mean. But we told the real story from beginning to end. And it didn't look like this, this growth chart. It looked like this.
Come on now.
You know,
You are giving me so much life right now, both of you. Now we see why your ministry is called Get Real Ministries, because the transparency and the vulnerability that you gave, I'm going to tell you, you just set me free. Like, Darlena, seriously, rage is my thing. Like that's that thing that it lures me back into its trap. Like if you just rage, you can get what you want. And so, you know, it's what you just said is so powerful, because we do, right? We put others in our fantasy and we expect them to perform at this level in our fantasy. And what is that fantasy based in? Is it based in truth? No, not at all. It's based in fantasy. It's certainly not based in capital T truth. You know, the truth that we live our lives based on. So reconciling your own stuff and not holding others to this unreal, what we call in family strengthening, and it's unrealistic expectations, right? Like, but they seem really real to you, but they're unrealistic. So we're gonna watch this next video. And this video is talking to us about, well, you'll see what it's talking to us about, but I think it's getting real as well. And so we'll finish the conversation after this next video.
We made a decision that divorce is not an option.
No matter what happens, divorce is not an option.
The first commitment is to God. Your second commitment is to family. Your second commitment is to family. And it's a very important commitment. It's a very important commitment. You better be committed or you ain't gonna make it. If you can only love me when you like me, we ain't gonna make it. Because sooner or later, I'm gonna pluck your last nerve. If you're not committed, you're not gonna make it. You come to the altar and you raise your hand and you say, Lord, I give myself to you, but you don't. You walk down here and join the church and you say, now I'm a member of the church, but you're not. You marry somebody and say, you can count on me, I'll be there through the thick and the thin, for better, for worse, for richer and poor, in sickness and health. You didn't mean it. You have to be committed through the storm and the rain and the heartache and the pain and the disappointment. You have to believe in the we and the us and not the me and the you, or you're not gonna make it. It's a commitment. It's not a feeling. You gotta come home when you're in love, and you gotta come home when you're not in love, or you're not gonna make it. And stay there till the love comes back. It's a commitment. It's a commitment. It's a commitment. It's a commitment. Commitments don't have nothing to do with your feelings. You do it because you're supposed to. And stop expecting to be rewarded for what you're supposed to do anyway. Stop bragging about how you brought your money home. You were supposed to. Stop bragging about how you took care of me. You're supposed to take care of me. It's a commitment. This ain't a date. This is a commitment. We have passed the stage of dating. We made a commitment. That's why they said for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health. The preacher knew that at least one of us was going to be crazy. He was warning you from the beginning. It's a commitment. You picked out that crazy man. You chose that crazy woman. Shut up. Did nobody put her on you? You wouldn't rest till you got her. Now shut up. You wouldn't listen to nobody. Everybody tried to tell you. People tried to warn you. No. I just gotta have him. Well, now you got him. Shut up. It's a commitment. No, ain't nobody teaching this stuff. Somebody has got to arrest this crazy generation that wants to take everything and give back nothing. You take a half-committed man and a half-committed trifling woman and put them together, and they'll have some half-committed trifling kids, and the whole house will be half-committed because children will be what they see. Stop fussing at your kids. They're a reflection of you.
That was strong, wasn't it?
That was strong medicine.
But some people, you got to come that strong. Because I'm
Right.
honest with you, some people are tired of the fluff. They're tired of you giving them a flowered message. You skating around what the real problem is. Some people, I know I like to take it that way. You want to talk to me like because that's just the way I'm wired. So commitment is what it is. So, babe, I want to ask my husband this question. How is it that you made it through the rough times and still remain committed?
Wow.
You better get that right.
Wait a minute, my shirt.
Wow. Wow, that's tough. It's not tough. It's tough, but it's an easy answer. Is that you just have to know that God put this person in your life, and sort of that was TD Jakes, right? Mm-hmm. You know, he knew that I had my issues, and my wife is going to have her issues, and that there was only one way that you're going to get those issues and try to make them as thin as possible, and that was to put Christ and get that part of the life and stand on that more than anything that you could ever do. I mean, even in my failures in the beginning of marriage and stuff that was going on, and how it was just the perseverance and understanding that I needed more than just my friends and my co-workers and all that I saw most of the day. I spent most of my time at work. So that was who I was seeing and talking to. So that being said, right now is that when I made God that centerpiece, it basically changed the way I felt about marriage and took me to another level in marriage. So I just thank God for what he's done to me, and hopefully I can, show that on a daily basis wherever I'm at. Like I said, whether it's at church or the marketplace, people look at me and I used to have this license plate, like little thing around my license plate, and it said, God allows U-turns, right? And one of my coworkers used to always throw this in my face. He said, man, you done made so many U-turns, you done went into a complete circle. But they saw the change once I decided to dedicate my whole life, everything that I had, because like I said, like he said in that video, is that your children going to be a reflection of you. And I did not want my children to become a reflection of me the way I used to be. I just wanted to show them a different way of doing things. And that was just by the grace and mercy of God. So that's my answer. I'm going to stick to it.
That's leading through the good times and the bad, right? So Philip, let me ask you this. That was powerful, Tony. That was powerful because it wasn't you, essentially, is what you said. It was, you had to make a decision, but you put Christ at the center. And he has, we don't just make that commitment to our wife or our husband. We make that covenant with God. Let
me add something else to that. It was a part of me that basically God put accountability partners in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got those and got away from some of the other stuff that, other people that you have to cut off or they fall off more than like cut off. The ones who really are your friends, that no matter how radical your change in life becomes, they're going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones who didn't, hey, good riddance, and hopefully they'll see the point of where I went and how I.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So I wanna, in light of what you just said, Tony and Philip, this is directly to both of you. I'm gonna read something first, and I want you to give me what's on your heart after I read it. Is that okay?
Definitely.
Okay. So I, Philip, Tony, take you, Darlena, take you, Cassandra, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer and poorer, for sickness, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish until death do us part. This is my solemn vow. So in light of, yeah, sure, how you showed up, but Darlena's already shared how she's shown up in some of her hardest times. Cassandra's my best friend, so I can imagine how she's shown up in some of her hardest times, right? Like, we are not perfect. Your book is called Unperfect, The Unperfect Marriage. Help me to understand what was it for you?
Well, I think this is the answer, and then I'll give you an example of how I came to this conclusion. Deal with your stuff. Okay. And so in the midst of Darlena's struggle with rage, I found the best counseling program I could find in the country, over $4,000. We're in the middle of the counseling session, and I'm thinking, okay, now's the time. The guy's asking me what the problem is. I tee it up, and I can tee up a good story. I make it sound like I'm the most pitiful man on the planet, and she is Godzilla, okay? She is ruling my life with this rage. And so I present this whole thing to him, and he asked me this question. He said, what kind of man do you want to be when your wife is struggling with rage? I said, bro, no, you didn't hear the issue. It's horrible. She screams, she's ugly, all these things. He said, how do you want to show up in those moments? What he was saying is, you deal with your stuff. Start with you. Why are you afraid of her? Why do you run from her? Why do you shut down for 3 days at a time and not have anything to do with her? Deal with you. And then he looked at her and he said, why are you so angry? And she said, because I'm overwhelmed. And I thought she's a little woman from Texas trying to control me with her bad attitude because she wants to get what she wants. But the reality was, I was traveling. I was never there to help her with these 4 kids, most of which were under the age of 5. She's constantly in the diaper syndrome and, doing all this stuff. I come home, I ask this one question: what are you doing? And all she could hear was criticism. All she could hear was judgment. And so it triggered her. Now, that's not, eventually we got to the source of her rage and there was healing in her heart. But what he was telling me is, bro, deal with your stuff. That's where we have to start. If we're going to heal the marriage, it can't be me coming in saying she's the problem. It's got to start with me. Where am I failing? What am I adding? How am I reacting to fear? Those are the things that we got to start with.
Oh, that's so good.
Woo, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Deal with, and you know what? It's like we can easily point the finger at our spouse, when just say, but it's always something. I always say this: there's always a what behind the why.
Mm-hmm. So good.
If we would take time to discover and to ask those questions, and really to sit and say, well, let me just look at what all that she's doing, or look at what's happening in her life at this moment, because there may be some things that are totally stressing her out, and let me look at that instead of looking at the fact that she has so much anger, because there's a reason for anger. Mm-hmm. There's a reason, for rage. And it's usually the cry out. I'm going to tell you this. When a woman has had enough, sometimes they want to still hold their position as the wife, the church leader. But there's a moment when we've had enough. And sometimes, fellas, it comes out in rage. It comes out in rage because we don't want to feel like we're letting you down. We don't want to feel like we're letting everyone else down. We don't want to feel like we are not this quote unquote wife being the wife that we're, that is spoken of. But sometimes we are crying out. And sometimes the cry may look to you like it's a rage. Mm-hmm. And it very well may be. But I like that story you just told, Phillip. Like, when we have had enough, we had it. Sometimes it just comes out that way. And not always, and I'm not co-signing that. I'm not at all. Yeah. But I'm just saying that what we need to realize is there is always a what behind the why. If we take the time. And I love that you said, Phillip, you went to counseling. There's nothing wrong with counseling, viewers.
Mm-hmm.
If you know.
Counselor went to counseling.
Yes. if you know that you have done everything, you've tried everything, and what they say, you may need a mediator, a person in between, but it's nothing wrong with that. I would say this: if you can invest thousands of dollars into an automobile, into a house, into a vacation, into clothing,
Come on.
why not invest in your marriage?
That's right.
Invest in your marriage, and investing because the enemy, and if we go back to Genesis, right, and how God said that, the dominion, we have dominion, and we rule over all the things that He wants us to rule over. But if we don't get to that point, then we will never. I'm gonna tell you this: if you never get to the point where you and your spouse are walking in unity, you will never experience the power of God that He wants to have over in your life.
So true.
You will never experience it.
Yeah, our relationship with Him is a marriage.
Right.
Come on. It's a covenant.
Right.
Isn't it awesome? Isn't it awesome that that's the image that He uses for us to show us how much He loves His bride, right? What He would do for His bride. And that's the model that He's given to men on how to live their lives, in relation to their wives. But there is a responsibility attached to being that bride that we as women have to acknowledge as well. So
yeah. Something I'd love to jump in here and share is the power of shame that has in your life and in your marriage. Shame is like the super glue of hell. Shame is what makes you believe that you deserve to not have a good marriage, that you deserve all the bad that's coming in your life. When you invite the Lord into that shame, the shame that you live in for not getting it right, not being perfect, and the Lord comes in and heals all that, it changes the trajectory of your life and your marriage. Because to break it down, we've got to have the revelation that we're not going to have the fantasy. The fantasy is unreal. It's a fantasy of being perfect. And then we've developed all this shame because we're not perfect. And so you got to break it down, get the revelation, and then deal with the shame. Because if you don't deal with the shame, the enemy's just going to keep his thumb on you. He's going to keep you down. He's going to keep you in your numbing out behaviors, your addictive behaviors, all the things that you use to comfort yourself. You got to get healed of all that. And then you got to get vulnerable and real with each other. And then lastly, I'd like to address your identity. If we live trying to get our fulfillment from the outside of ourselves, whether it's from our jobs, our careers, being a mom, get it from our spouses, we're never going to be content. And we're always going to be looking for something on the outside of us to make us feel good. And we're going to live in blame. And we're going to, and a lot of us take on victim mindsets. And so to live above that, the Lord's called us to live above the line. We've got to find our identity in Him and go after Him for all of our needs and come together, not as halves, like T.D. Jakes says. We come together as whole people because we've gotten our whole identity from Christ, from His presence and His purpose in our life. And then you can come together in health and thrive in your marriage and family.
Yeah, and it's not like we don't have problems today. It's not like we don't have miscommunication today. It's not like we don't have things that are pulling at us that want us to be busy. It's that you're imperfect on purpose. You recognize your weakness, you invite grace into it, and you give each other a measure of grace to work this thing out. And so whenever she gets angry today, I don't go running out of the room. I go, what do you need? What's going on? Talk to me. She simmers down and we get through it, right? And likewise, we have to have a way to feed the relationship. And one of the things that we have learned is prayer together as a couple. You got to have it. I need a water. But the thing is that when you have prayer together, that feeding of the spiritual, that unifying of hearts, that is so important, because ultimately marriage is meant to minister to one another, and through the unity of your marriage to your family, to others around you. And so powerful, powerful dynamic. Can't hear you, please.
Absolutely. It's ministering to one another is often the piece that gets left out, right? We wake up in the morning and we're looking at each other like, you're supposed to do this today. You're supposed to do this today. Like, here's the to-do list. You know, we know what we're going to do, what's going to happen through us, but we forget the to us. And what you said is also the very same thing that Eric is my husband, that we always say that our priority is a loving connection.
That's
Not
right.
just a connection, because you can be connected and it can be a mess, but a loving connection that truly sees the other person. He made a comment as you were speaking, Philip, that when she rages, you have to see the fear or the pain, and then right away you went right into need. You said, what is it that you need? Because the person in the midst of their rage is not even present with their own need.
So
They're
true.
really just, they're in a fight or flight moment. And they're like, I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to fight you while I stay here because you're not giving me what I need. So we're not hearing them and we're not really seeing them. And that's so, so big. So Tony, I wanted to just give you an opportunity to kind of give us that Tony wisdom that I hear.
As we've been speaking about all the time on this whole show, is basically talking about how, see that man or woman, to listen, to see that hurt, is that you got to be able to have an ear to hear. And when you hear it, you have to act on it. So I think that's what I'm going to leave with today, is just act on what you hear when it comes to the hurt from somebody.
So,
you know what? I like that part too. I like that because what I'm hearing is that we're in this together. We gonna work through this together. And sometimes everybody ain't gonna get a marriage that's gonna be fluffy. It's gonna be, everything gonna be right. But as long as you speak, you spoke on those vows, for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. So I just think as long as we keep it, we're together. We're not. This is not a I thing or you thing, but we're going to work through this together. And I think that if everyone keeps that at the forefront of their mind, that I'm helping. I'm here to help them.
that's so good.
We're both here to make each other better.
That's right.
I'm here to help them. So Philip and Darlena, we want to give you guys an opportunity to leave us with some final words of wisdom. What would you say to our viewers?
Well, the one thing that I would say is if your marriage is struggling, your need is healing. Don't just try to do the mechanics, do the healing work. Work on yourselves as individuals. What we do is we call it a marriage reset. And we talk about those principles in this book, The Unperfect Marriage, and then we take them through a process of resetting things. And in that first section, it's all about working on my heart. What am I bringing to the table? Self-awareness opens the door to healing. Know yourself to lead yourself. And so these are the things that have to happen for it to work. And if we understand this, that Jesus became a man, think about that, so that he could take on sin. What is sin? It's our weakness. What is our propensity, our tendency? Is to think about ourselves. And so inviting Jesus into us changes the game. And then we heal this, we work on this. And so we do intensives and resets and stuff with couples all the time to help them through this process. Hopefully someday we'll see you guys and we can do one in your area. What would you say, babe, as we close out?
I would just, I just want to say in closing, to not be afraid of the process. You know, so many people run from their bad marriages or whatever because they don't want to they don't want to feel pain. They don't want to feel discomfort. But you have to understand that dealing with pain and struggling with discomfort is a part of being human. And when you wall yourself off from experiencing pain, you also wall yourself off from feeling all the other emotions, joy, and all the things that we dream of. So don't be afraid of the discomfort, because when you allow yourself to wade into the deep, you know, you're going to find that what you dreamed of is on the other side of it. When you're all done, it's all said and done.
Don't be afraid of the discomfort, and know yourself to lead yourself, right?
Yes.
So good. So good. Cassandra, did you have something?
Yeah, that was so good. And Philip, I heard that invitation.
Right.
And I want everyone in the chat, I want you to put in the chat, bring them to Baltimore.
Yes, yes, yes.
We would love to come.
We can, me and Placida and our husband, we can put this together. We can make this a boot camp weekend. Strap up, be ready. Okay?
Let's say it's already done. Okay, we'll just get with you in your calendars. We want people to know how to do this thing. This is the very first institution that God created, and He did that on purpose. And it is our marriage. And that's the beginning of our families, which is the beginning of our communities. And we have to invest, as Cassandra said earlier, we have to invest in this most precious commodity. So we're bringing you to Baltimore. Pack your bags. We will let you know when and where. But for now, tell folks how to get a hold of your book.
Yeah, so they can go to Amazon, The Unperfect Marriage. They can also go to our website, becourageouscoaching.com, and you can order it today. We'd love to send you a copy. Yeah, so that's simple.
You'll find it on our website for $10 right now. We a special price that we were doing to celebrate our anniversary.
28 years.
Yeah, so that's
becourageouscoaching.com. She's 29. What are you talking about, Phillip?
I stole that.
Yeah, so your website again is?
becourageouscoaching.com.
becourageouscoaching.com.
Yeah, click on resources and you'll go right to it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's one thing that we didn't get to touch on in this episode, but we will, which is there is an importance in laughing together too.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we before we go to the yes, we have to laugh. We have to remember not to take ourselves too seriously. But before we go to this last video that we want to leave everyone with, we have Cassandra. Would you want to just have this final?
Yes. So we started this, of course, with 1 Timothy. It says, if a man cannot manage his own household, how can he take care of God's church? So we just want to leave you with that. And of course, in order to do that, in Romans, it simply says this: if you confess with your heart, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And Phillip mentioned that you cannot do this without Jesus, people.
No.
You need him.
No.
He is such a great, how can I say it? A great father. He convicts you. He tells you, a great Lord. So invite him into your house and into your heart. Invite him into your house. Invite him into your marriage. Invite him into your relationship, because he wants to be there for you. But you gotta want. He gave us all a free will. But this is how we are making it. This is how we all are making it. Okay?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And here we go.
But what happens if your husband says, honey, would you wash my feet? Are you nuts? Wash your own stupid, stinking feet. What do you think I am, a slave in this house? I ain't washing your feet. Come on, you got to get this. Now, I mean, I know it's funny, but there's a message here. I mean, people will do as a ministry in church what they will not do for their own families at home behind closed doors. If I knocked my water over, 10 of you would jump up, clean it up. I'd have 10 more glasses of water before I knew what was happening. But if somebody spills it at home, I remember when my kids used to spill stuff. What is the matter with you? Can't you do anything right? I am so sick and tired of you making a mess every time you sit down at this table. Come on, don't make me work too hard tonight. I want you to get this. Hallelujah. So, he's anxious. So we really have to do things for one another. You know, the main thing that sours a marriage is because people stop doing little things for one another. They stop thinking that those things are important. They stop giving compliments. They stop helping. They stop washing one another's feet. So Dave, I'm committed to you. I'm willing to do little things for you and help you in whatever way that you need help. You're my man. I love you. And yes.
Can I get a little reflexology here?
That's the way it is at home. You give them an inch and they take a mile, right? There you go. Oh, I gotta dry him, he says. Okay. This is gonna be great on TV, isn't it? I'm telling you. Come on. Oh, get out of here. It's here. Dry your own feet.